Appreciate everybody joining the video. What you're looking at here is a I-beam and steel square tubing support structure that was used as a service riser on this commercial building. What you can see now is just in front of the lift in that carpeted area is the other half of what was the service riser. You can see the insulators there. So a garbage truck picking up the dumpster behind this plaza had come through late the night before, which would have been a Friday night, to retrieve the garbage from the dumpster. And when he went to leave, we believe he may have had his chute up or the lift or something and caught the service entrance conductors. When he did so with so much force that he snapped this steel square tubing. He also pulled the utility pole, so much so that the pole cracked, and the utility company felt that it wasn't structurally sound anymore, and they were going to go ahead and actually replace the pole as well as all 3 transformers. So I'm just over there talking to them now, formulating a plan, figuring out what they need from us, if anything I can do for them, and what we can do to help them to make sure this all goes as smooth as possible.
I was just trying to basically walk, like driving straight up long. You can back it up and pull it right in. Or you can put it long ways, whatever way is easier for you.
So the gentleman you see on the lift here is my neighbor, Ricky, who is a professional welder who primarily works in the natural gas and oil industry. However, he does some freelancing from time to time and has helped us in the past, and we've done some stuff for him as well. And we were trying to figure out what the best scenario to get this shop, which is a pizza shop, is a customer who reached out to us initially to get them up and running. Right now, the shop's been without power for about 24 hours because this occurred in the middle of the night, right after they had closed the night prior. So they are losing quite a bit of money at this point, not being able to be open, and they're also starting to worry about a lot of their produce in the fridges and freezers. So naturally, when we arrived on site around noon that Saturday, about a half hour after they had called us, they were pretty desperate to get things fixed. So I wasn't able to get as much footage of the actual damage just because of the chaos of when we first got on scene. That being said, through some thinking, we're trying to initially possibly get a generator out here to just worry about getting power established back to the building. And at that time, the utility was not on site, so we weren't really aware of how quickly they were going to be able to mobilize, but they actually ended up coming almost immediately after we had arrived, so that worked out well. But anyway, the next best thing that we could think of, because being a Saturday, most of the supply houses are closed, so you can't really get a lot of industrial, commercial grade materials from your local hardware box stores like Home Depot or Lowe's. So we thought to ourselves, well, we may be able to just remove some of this damaged material and weld on a new bracket as it was prior. And so that's what we were able to do. Thankfully, we were able to mobilize Ricky very quickly. He happened to be available. So we ran up and got a scissor lift as fast as possible to make sure he had a nice steady platform to work off of, and he was able to get there very quickly. So right now, Ricky's just going through and removing some of those welds via grinder, also just trying to cut that tubing so that way he can have that removed. We originally were trying to find the correct spot to grind that off, as Ricky had some spare tubing laying around that we were able to use for this job, but we wanted to make sure that we made the proper clearance over this back alleyway here. So here in Pennsylvania, we're still operating on the 2017 National Electrical Code, and in Article 230 230.24 clearances for overhead service conductors. Section B, subsection 5, states that we need to be 18 feet over public streets, alleys, roads, parking areas subject to truck traffic, driveways, and other than residential property. So in this application, we want to make sure that we are at least 18 feet above this alleyway to the bottom of the service conductors to hopefully avoid issues like this in the future where some sort of large commercial truck coming back here is able to get anywhere near these cables. One thing to mention as well, the code doesn't directly state what can and can't be used as a service mast support. It just states that it needs to be adequately strong enough for the supporting means, and that can be found in Article 230.28 service masts as supports. Making some final checks between Ricky and I to make sure we're good to go before he sends some of these welds in. And you got to appreciate a good tradesman. Ricky taking the time, even though it's a small thing, to put a level on that bar, just really goes to show, you know, it's really the small things that add up to a good quality install. Something as small as making sure that the steel you're welding is square really is a big deal. Jacob and I head over one more time just to touch base with the linemen before they really get at it here with installing that new pole, just to make sure that there's nothing that they need from us and vice versa. I can't stress enough either how much these linemen are. I mean, these guys are rock stars. These guys are out here in the middle of snowstorms, rainstorms, keeping the power on for everybody. And thankfully, the two local utility companies here in Western Pennsylvania are great to work with. The guys are all awesome and incredibly professional. They don't really go out of their way to make your life harder. At the end of the day, you know, everybody here is working together to get this job done for the customer. And it really is awesome that our local utility guys are so professional. So here I'm just going to be performing a small visual check on the disconnect that feeds the pizza shop here. Just want to get in there and visually inspect, make sure that there's nothing obvious. We did end up torquing down all the connections just to verify. It's been so long since somebody's been in there. We also ended up going ahead and using a shop vac to clean the area out, clean the enclosure out, just of any sort of debris, cobwebs, that sort of thing. So I'll probably have him blurred out here, but that's the foreman coming over from the utility company. We originally asked the guys if they were all right being on film. It just would be really cool to have some of that on film and seeing those guys swap out that pole and such. But just due to some liabilities and company policy, they just really weren't too keen to be on film. So we did respect that, just to make sure that we didn't really catch them too much in the act of swapping out those transformers. So Ricky's done a couple passes here, removing the slag with a grinder, hitting it again with a welder to really make sure he gets good penetration and a nice thick solid weld. He's about to wrap up here, and I'm going to get up on the lift and start getting ready to get the mast cable support installed. So you see that porcelain insulator there by my left foot. That's what's used to support the cable. It's called a quadplex that's going to run from the utility pole over to the building. Porcelain, obviously being a good quality insulator, is not going to allow any sort of electrical conductivity to that steel pole. So thankfully, the utility was kind enough to provide me with this on a Saturday. I don't carry this sort of product. Just don't do enough of this. It just doesn't happen often enough to have these on hand. The utility, obviously doing this stuff all the time, has these on their trucks. But we were going to go ahead and get this mounted for them because they obviously had a lot of work to do. So I'm a big fan of DeWalt. I love DeWalt tools. I've had those forever, and they've really come a long way recently. And also, one thing, especially for guys that are new in the industry, make sure you're buying good quality drill bits. Don't skimp out, buy cheap stuff. And if you're really worried about it, what you want to make sure you're doing as well is using a good quality tapping and drilling lubricant. That's going to really make those good quality drill bits, one, function better, and also maintain a sharper edge. And the key to making sure that you don't burn your drill bits up is you have to apply a lot of pressure, especially when you're using a larger diameter bit like you see here. You can actually see my wrist sort of wobbling a little bit because I'm trying to get enough force applied. You really want to see large chip diameter when you're drilling. You don't want to see small, hot, sort of blue tinted chips. That's really showing you that you're really just chiseling away and heating up both the metal and your bit. You can see here with the unibit, the very long sort of stranded strands that are coming off. That's really what you want to see. That's showing you that one, the edge is very sharp of your drill bit and is continuously cutting the steel away rather than just chipping it out, causing lots of heat. Here on the back side, just due to this perspective, you'll really be able to see the size of the chips that are coming off of that drill bit, how they're really long and coiled up like a spring. That's really what you want to see. That's how you know your drill bit is working well. I don't really know why, but at the time in my head, I was kind of struggling to figure out the best way to mount this in terms of the allocation of the washers, what side, what orientation. I ended up realizing that I needed some more from the utility guys, and thankfully they had plenty of them where it would get me what I needed.
We might be able to ask them if they have some.
We finally were able to get the orientation I was comfortable with, and one that I felt had enough support to comfortably feel that these cables are not going to shift or twist or anything like that, you know, as these wires kind of move around during the wind and just storms and things like that that'll occur naturally over time. The thread on the bolt was the shortest one that the utility company had. These are typically used for when they mount different products and things to the utility poles themselves, which are typically 7 to 11 inch diameter wooden poles. So in this application, they're a little overkill. But, you know, in these emergency situations, especially when parts aren't really readily available and time is of the essence, you've really got to just sort of make sure that what you do is good enough in the moment.
You welded that all up yourself? That's sweet.
Yeah, Ricky's got one really cool portable welding rig. He welded up the back of that all by himself, and it's a really cool piece of machinery. So we give it the industry standard tap, make sure that it's properly secured. Then we're going to go ahead and give it about another quarter turn just to make sure that, again, that this is properly fastened and that these are not going to come loose over time. So we'll quickly transition to just before they're about to re-energize everything. I've got my meters hooked up. What's hooked up currently is a phase rotation meter. So you You see the black, the red, and the blue. With three-phase systems, you have to maintain a certain sequence for things like motors and such to rotate correctly. Otherwise, they'll rotate in the opposite direction and can cause damage. So what you see there in the red is my rotation meter from Amp Pro. We want to look at that as soon as they energize it to make sure that that's correct. I also have my fluke here just to verify voltage as well. So just as things are moving quickly, I didn't get as much footage as I wanted, but here you can see now that everything is up and running, everything's finished, and that rat's nest, unfortunately, is what was there prior and will have to stay.